The heiress I was supposed to marry fell for some punk from off campus. For his sake, she got into street racing and fights, defied her parents, and even ended up pregnant. She called it love, the most beautiful memory of her life. But I was the one who got dragged into the mess, and her punk boyfriend was the one who broke my arm. I spent the next 6 years abroad for treatment. When I finally came back, she knelt before me, begging for my forgiveness. I just scoffed and told her, then go break his arm too. 6 years later, I saw Isabella Carrington again at a family gala. She was holding a glass of wine, the red liquid swirling gently as she moved. Her cool, captivating profile made her stand out effortlessly among the crowd of beautiful people. She was even more beautiful than I remembered. Her eyes were like deep, still pools, holding a distant, unapproachable look. To the guests who came to offer toasts, she would just nod, murmuring a detached thank you, or of course. I figured she only ever dropped that facade for Jax. I sat in a corner, out of place in my heavy down jacket, having just flown in from Hawaii and still adjusting to the cold. Not going to say hello. I smiled and shook my head. No, it's fine. We're not exactly close anymore. My best friend, Mike, threw an arm around my neck. If none of that crap had happened back then, I'd probably be giving a toast at your wedding right now. There's no point in what-ifs. Mike glanced over at her, the stunning figure in the crowd, and clicked his tongue. Heard the Carringtons have another daughter in the picture now. Isabella's been sidelined, not the favorite anymore. I've never been one for gossip, especially not about someone I cut ties with long ago. I casually placed my glass back on a passing tray and stood up. I'm heading out. Call me if you need anything. With that, I walked towards the exit. Just as I reached the doors and was about to pull one open, I felt an intense stare on my back. I turned around and saw Isabella staring at me, completely stunned. A shattered wine glass lay at her feet on the plush red carpet. Her gaze was so intense it felt like it could burn holes right through me. "Davis," she breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. I didn't answer. I just opened the door and walked out. In the corner of my eye, I saw her abandoning all composure, pushing through the crowd and running towards me. Her pace quickened with every step. Just as the heavy door sealed shut, I heard her call my name one more time. I must have misheard, because it sounded like there was a desperate tremor in her voice. I got in the car my family had sent and watched as Isabella stood outside the gates, frantically looking around. Her calls on my name echoed faintly. "Home, Mr. Henderson." As the car pulled away, my mind drifted back to everything that had happened. With Isabella, we were a year apart. Both our families were in real estate, so the Hayes and the Carringtons were always close. For the sake of convenience, Isabella and I went to the same schools our whole lives. Her mother was always telling her to look after me like a little brother. And she did. She was a true prodigy, so brilliant that she seemed to think everyone around her was an idiot. In elementary school, while we were learning basic math, she was already studying foreign languages and taking private dance lessons. No matter where she went, she was always the one who shone the brightest. She was like a star in the sky, beautiful and untouchable. She never lacked for admirers, but she ignored all of their advances. Of course, Isabella had every right to be arrogant. Her family was wealthy, she was gorgeous, and the Carringtons had even funded the construction of our school. She treated everyone else with an air of disdain, but with me, she would patiently let her guard down. We were always together growing up, walking to school, walking home. We lived in the same gated community, so our paths were always intertwined. On vacation, I was either at her house or she was at mine. Mrs. Carrington loved to pinch my cheeks and say our families should just arrange our marriage so we'd never be apart. Isabella would just link her arm with mine, her smile radiant. I'd blush and stay quiet, but inside I was ecstatic. Who wouldn't love someone as beautiful and kind as Isabella? Only an idiot wouldn't. Back then, Isabella made no secret of her fondness for me, making all the other guys burn with jealousy. I cherished her affection, and I took the talk of our arranged marriage as my goal for the future. Mr. Carrington and my father had even planned to formally announce our engagement on our 18th birthdays. But unfortunately, fate has a way of blindsiding you when everything seems perfect. In our senior year, her family's company, The Carrington Group held a one-on-one charity event to sponsor the children of their employees. That's when Jax showed up with his bleached hair and piercings. He stood out from all the other scholarship kids. To put it bluntly, he looked like a street punk. I was there representing the Hayes family, and it was the first time I'd ever seen anyone so distinct. The first thing Jax asked was when he was getting the money. For a second, I was completely speechless. Isabella told me to switch places with her, worried he might give me a hard time. She always knew how to step in when I was unsure of myself. So I let her take over. It was a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. At first, Isabella frowned the whole time she spoke to him, but gradually, whatever he said made her start to laugh. The look in her eyes changed from disdain to admiration, and then to something like a teenage crush. The two of them got lost in conversation. The always cool Isabella was laughing more with this stranger than I'd ever seen her laugh with anyone but me. Jax didn't have many skills, but living on the streets, he'd learned exactly how to charm a girl. After the event, Jax slipped her a note and gave her a wink. Isabella carefully tucked it into her purse, not telling a soul. Maybe it was because we all came from the same cookie-cutter world, but his arrival shattered Isabella's perfect little bubble, bringing a dangerous spark to her predictable life. Without that charity event, their paths never would have crossed. She was a high-society heiress, and he was a kid from the slums with a deadbeat, gambling addict father. I later found out that Jax had been expelled from his last high school for truancy and fighting. He spent his days racing his motorcycle with other delinquents and had dated nearly every wannabe bad girl in the neighborhood, never for more than a few days at a time. From that day on, Isabella and I still walked to school together, but the moment the final bell rang, Jax would be waiting at the gates on his motorcycle to pick her up. She climbed on the back, ecstatic, showing a side of herself I had never seen before. Jax even got his buddies to arrange cheap flowers into a heart on the school lawn. In front of everyone, he made a big show of confessing his love to Isabella, shouting up at her classroom window. I thought she'd be mortified and reject him, but instead, she ran downstairs and threw herself in his arms, her face lit up with a dazzling smile. A lot of people thought it was a tragedy, the golden girl falling for a delinquent from the gutter. It was something no one in our circle could accept. All I felt was a deep, aching pain in my chest. Her mother was furious. She grounded Isabella, locking her in her room and leaving her meals outside the door. I went to visit her, but she just asked me to create a diversion so she could sneak out. I refused at first. Then she did something I'd never seen before, pressing up against me and begging me to help her. I still said no, my heart breaking a little. How had the pure, brilliant girl I knew turned into this desperate, nauseating version of herself? While I was distracting her mom, she climbed out the bathroom window and jumped. She broke a bone in the fall, but she didn't care. For her, it was all worth it for love. Where her parents finally found her, she was in a cheap motel bed with Jax. Her father, a tough ex-military man, beat Jax half to death himself and was about to drag him to the police station. But Isabella grabbed a knife and held it to her own throat, forcing her father to let Jax go. After that, her parents mostly gave up on trying to control her. She and Jax became even more reckless, always all over each other, constantly kissing and clinging together. Then, in the spring semester of our senior year, news broke that Isabella was pregnant, and it sent shockwaves through her social circle. The day she dropped out of school, everyone was pitying the fallen golden girl. But she didn't seem to care, gently stroking her stomach with a serene look on her face, like she was already a mother. Her father told her that if she dared to keep that bastard child, she would no longer be a Carrington. That was the second time she'd ever fought with her father. She screamed that Jax's baby wasn't a bastard, it was a symbol of their love, and that if she lost the baby, she'd kill herself. The argument sent her father to the hospital with chest pains. I'd often see her and Jax hanging around my neighborhood, making out. Whenever he saw me, he'd give me a provocative smirk and a little wave. They were always on that cheap, rattling motorcycle of his, with no regard for the baby she was carrying. Finally, right before final exams, they got into an accident. They ran a red light, and a car clipped the back of the motorcycle. Jax was mostly fine, but Isabella was thrown from a bike. She was lying in a pool of blood on the pavement. She lost the baby. The first thing Jax did wasn't to check on Isabella. It was to check the damage to his bike. He only visited her in the hospital once, and he didn't stay long. He didn't show up again, but I did. My parents made me bring her some things to help her recover. I ran into Jax in the hospital stairwell. He was on the phone with his father, plotting how he could marry into the Carrington family's money. I recorded the entire conversation and played it for Isabella in her hospital room. I'll admit, I still felt some pity for the girl I'd grown up with. It's hard to just sever a bond you've had for over a decade. More than anything, I wanted to pull her out of the mess she was in. I wanted her to stop throwing her life away for a piece of trash. But that act just made her lose her mind completely. Isabella didn't even let the recording finish before she started screaming at me. She called me a villain, trying to tear them apart because I couldn't stand to see her happy. She said I was disgusting. She was hysterical, slapping my hand so hard the phone went skittering across the floor to the doorway. Just then, Jax opened the door, saw the phone, and without a word, he punched me in the face. And Isabella just stood there and watched him hit me, not saying a single word to stop him. I swallowed the pain and walked away, feeling like a complete idiot. In the weeks that followed, plenty of people tried to talk sense into her. Teachers, old friends, they all got the same treatment I did. She was completely obsessed, blindly in love with Jax. At our graduation party, a huge family affair, Isabella dragged Jax up onto the stage with her, right into the spotlight. At an event where every man was in a suit or a tuxedo, he was the only one in a studded leather jacket. He looked uncomfortable, but a glance at the beautiful Isabella by his side seemed to give him a boost of courage. Then, in front of all our families and friends, they started making out, kissing passionately like no one else existed. Mr. Carrington's face went dark with rage. Mrs. Carrington was so furious she actually fainted. Pulling a stunt like that at a formal event was a massive slap in the face to the Carrington name. From then on, whenever people talked about their family, they'd always mention their lack of class. I watched them from the audience, feeling a mixture of pity and disgust. It was pathetic. After a moment of stunned silence, the entire hall erupted in laughter. Humiliated, Jax turned and stormed off. He wasn't watching where he was going and slammed right into me. He was the one who hit me, but he was the one who ended up on the floor. I was annoyed, but I still acted like a gentleman and offered him a hand up. In that moment, the contrast between us couldn't have been more stark. I was the well-respected son of the Hayes family, and he was a nobody from the wrong side of the tracks. All the judgmental eyes in the room were fixed on us. Jax slapped my hand away, his eyes filled with a deep, venomous hatred. He scrambled to his feet and scurried away in disgrace. I just shrugged, unfazed. Isabella glared at me, her eyes as cold as if I were a stranger. I thought after all these years you'd be happy for me. I can't believe you're just as judgmental and snobbish as everyone else. I didn't say a word. I just let her run after him. In that moment, any lingering hope I had for Isabella died. A person like that wasn't even worthy of being called a friend. My SAT scores came back, and they were good. I got into my first choice university. The day before I was set to leave for orientation, I got an iMessage from Isabella. She said she was feeling down and asked if I could meet up with her. I ignored her at first, but after she spammed me with a dozen more messages, I finally agreed to go. I figured it would be a good chance to make a clean break, to tell her we were done for good. But when I got to the place she'd sent, something fell off. Isabella wasn't there, only Jax. He was lounging in a chair, holding her phone, laughing with his friends, and bragging that he knew I'd show up. He said Isabella was sleeping upstairs, that they'd had a long night and were both worn out. I didn't want to hear it. I turned to leave, but he and his friends surrounded me. One of them pulled out his phone and started filming. Never heard a rich boy beg before, he sneered. Come on, let's hear you bark for me. The smug look on his face made me sick. I couldn't remember ever doing anything to him to deserve this. I ignored them and tried to walk away. He blocked my path again, and that same vicious look from the party flashed in his eyes. Ah, so that's what this is about, I said. The difference between us. You're just insecure, aren't you? My words hit a nerve. He He looked like I had just exposed his deepest, darkest secret. Jax's face darkened, and he signaled for his friends to jump me. I pulled out the taser I carried on my belt and managed to take a few of them down. Just as I was about to get away, Jax grabbed me by the ankle. Just then, a disheveled Isabella came downstairs, rubbing her eyes and calling out for Jax. When she saw the scene, she rushed over and slapped me across the face. The sting of the slap was nothing compared to the surreal horror of seeing her looking so cheap and messy. I couldn't bear to imagine what she and Jax had been doing in that rundown house. How could I, Davis Hayes, from one of the most respected families in New York, lose her to a street rat? My heart felt completely dead inside. Jax, still on the ground, started yelling for Isabella to run, playing the part of the hero protecting his damsel in distress. It was an obvious act that anyone could see through, but Isabella fell for it completely, looking at him with tears of gratitude in her eyes. You got to play both the victim and hero. So what did that make me? I kicked him off me and walked away from that godforsaken place into the setting sun. I never expected them to follow me. I felt a solid crack against my back as a pipe hit me. Jax pinned my hand to the ground with his foot. I heard the pipe whistle through the air. I could only watch as it came down and shatter my arm. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe, and my vision started to blur. Right before I blacked out, I thought I saw a flicker of regret in Isabella's eyes. With the last of my strength, I managed to whisper, "You will both pay for this." When I woke up, I was in the ICU. The doctors told me the damage to my right arm was permanent. They said there were no treatments available in the country and recommended I go abroad. Otherwise, the arm would atrophy and eventually need to be amputated. My parents made sure every single person involved in that attack went to prison. None of them had clean records in court. The list of their prior offenses was a mile long: theft, assault, aggravated battery. They were sentenced for all of it. Each of them got at least 5 years. Isabella tried to visit my house once, but she was thrown out the second she stepped on the property. My father immediately canceled every joint venture our company had with the Carringtons. He made it clear that if the Carringtons didn't make things right, he would dedicate the rest of his career to destroying them. The relationship between the Hayes and Carrington families was completely shattered, to the point where they couldn't even be in the same room. As soon as I was stable enough, I flew abroad for treatment. But even after 6 years, my arm never fully recovered. To this day, I can't even manage a handshake. All I can do is make a few weak gestures. The day after I got back, I ran into Isabella again. She had been waiting outside my house all night, her dark hair matted with morning dew. She stood up, her exhausted eyes were bloodshot, and she stared at me with a desperate intensity. "I've been looking for you for 6 years," she said, each word slowly, as if forcing them out. Seeing her face brought it all back. I didn't soften my expression. "You've seen me. Now you can go." She reached out, but then froze, her eyes fixed on my useless right arm. Her voice was raspy. "Your arm." "It's fine," I said. With a great deal of effort, I managed to raise my right hand and give her the middle finger before it dropped uselessly to my side again. 6 years of physical therapy, and that was the most I could do. She didn't get angry. Her eyes just welled up with tears, and she stepped forward, trying to take my hand. I moved aside, dodging her touch. "I'm so sorry, Davis. If I had just—" I cut her off. "If you know you were wrong, then stop showing your face around me," I said coldly. "If you were really sorry, why didn't you go to prison with the rest of them? Don't you think it's a little pathetic, crying crocodile tears now?" The color drained from her face. I was done talking to her. I started to close the gate, but she put her hand out to stop it. "Please, just give me a chance to make it up to you." Her beautiful face was a mask of begging and humility. It just made me feel sick. I repeated myself, "I don't need it." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head desperately. "Isabella, do you really have to push it this far?" I yelled, my face contorted with anger. "What you people did to me 6 years ago was more than enough. Just because I don't want to think about it doesn't mean I've forgotten or that I can forgive you enough to even be near you." Isabella stared at my furious face, frozen in place. I narrowed my eyes. "Or what? You think breaking one of my arms wasn't enough? Here, break this one too. I held out my good left arm and waited. My unhinged behavior seemed to terrify her. Her face went white, her lips trembled, and she stumbled backward. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She kept repeating, her apologies a broken record. Looking at me as if I were a complete stranger, she finally left, glancing back once but not daring to meet my eyes again. I collapsed onto the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling. I wanted to laugh, but I just felt like I'd acted like a complete lunatic. I never thought that coming home would mean running into Isabella, and I definitely never expected to see Jax again. I was in the office break room when I heard a familiar voice from the next room, and I frowned. Peeking through the door, I saw Jax dressed in a security guard's uniform, chatting with one of his coworkers. 6 years had clearly taken their toll. Life had sanded away his arrogance, and the youthful recklessness was gone from his face. His time in prison had left him gaunt and almost unrecognizable. The cruelty of the real world had finally caught up to him, shattering his dream of marrying into money. I had no desire to see him, so I went straight back to my office. By the end of the day, he had received his termination notice. I wasn't kind enough to let him earn a living in a building I owned. I couldn't understand it. It was like all the people who had ruined my life were suddenly lining up to reappear. A week after my return, the Carringtons paid a visit. Mr. Carrington came to our house with his daughter, not Isabella, but her younger sister, Chloe. I guess he was trying to play matchmaker. He pulled my father into the study for a chat, leaving me alone with Chloe. She sat there quietly, like a perfect porcelain doll, just staring at me. Are you seeing anyone? I asked with a smile. Chloe shook her head. Not at the moment. So, you know why your dad brought you here, right? Ido. I couldn't quite get a read on this girl, who was several years younger than me. Maybe I was just getting old. You know my sister, right? I nodded. It wasn't a secret, and I had nothing to be ashamed of. So, do you like her? I shook my head. No. She let out a visible sigh of relief, patting her chest as if a huge weight had just been lifted. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was a strange one. You don't like your own sister? She snorted. If you ask me, anyone who falls for my sister should get their eyes checked. My eye twitched. I felt personally attacked. My sister is all over the place. That guy who was in prison, he went looking for her the second he got out. I heard he got locked up fighting for her. My dad was about to marry her off to some wealthy heir, but she'd rather be with a lowlife than a prince. Is she nuts or what? I nodded in agreement. Completely nuts. And an idiot. Chloe moved over and sat right next to me. Seriously, though, I think you're all right. Oh, yeah? Why is that? Because we've known each other for 5 minutes, and we've already reached a consensus that my sister is a moron. I gave her a thumbs up with my good hand. You're all right yourself. Chloe raised an eyebrow. A lefty, huh? They say left-handed people are smart. I gave my useless right arm a little shake and offered a small smile. Disabled, not left-handed. Chloe stood up, and as I watched, she rolled up her left sleeve. A nasty, jagged scar snaked around her elbow, looking like a pale centipede. Well, what do you know? She said brightly. Looks like we're two of a kind. I pulled up my own sleeve, showing her the misshapen joint. Who did that to you? I asked, curious. My dear mother, she said casually, came at me with a butcher knife. I didn't even have time to duck. Chloe held up her arm, bragging about how she fought back against her evil mother. Looking at her, I felt the dark cloud that had been hanging over me for days finally start to lift. I couldn't help but think how much better things might have been if I had met her years ago. Just as Mr. Carrington came out of the study, he saw his wild younger daughter with one foot propped on a wastebasket, laughing her head off. He looked like he was getting a massive headache and was about to go over and reprimand her. She'd always been a handful, and he blamed himself for not raising her better. But my father stopped him, his gaze fixed on me and the small smile playing on my lips. Why don't we let the two of them give it a shot? My father suggested. Mr. Carrington, who had come for that exact reason, nodded in agreement. This was why he was here, after all. He'd figured that even if a match didn't work out, it would be good for Chloe to at least meet me. So, how'd you mess up your arm? I smiled. The same guy who was just in prison. Prison? Which one? Chloe, who had been looking confused, suddenly shot up, pointing at me and sputtering, "The wealthy heir?" I nodded. In a manner of speaking, yes. I expected her to be embarrassed, maybe apologize, but instead she leaned in with a wicked grin. Her face was alight with gossip. "Spill," she whispered. "I want to hear everything." "You want to know?" Chloe nodded eagerly. I turned my head away. "Nope, not telling you. You are impossible." Chloe playfully punched my chest. It didn't hurt, but suddenly we were very close, and the air between us felt charged. I looked into her eyes, which were bright and clear like gemstones. We just stood there, looking at each other. Ahem. Chloe, who was still leaning against me, jumped back as if she'd been electrocuted. Both of our faces flushed red, and we avoided each other's gaze. Our two fathers walked out of the study, laughing. Well, that escalated quickly. I don't think I've ever seen my son blush before. "Don't mind us. Carry on, huh?" A fresh wave of laughter followed them out the door. "I think I want to go home now," Chloe mumbled. I stood up. "I'll walk you out." Just as Chloe's car pulled away, I heard footsteps approaching from around the corner of the house. I turned to look. It was Jax. He was wearing a faded blue shirt, his hair a mess. He rushed towards me and grabbed my arm. "Davis, you have to help me," he said frantically. "I can't find Isabella." The nerve of him to show his face here. I will never forget the feeling of utter despair and agony as I watched that pipe come down on my arm. A phantom pain shot through my right arm. I pulled away from his grasp, my expression turning to ice. "You have 3 minutes to get off my property." What the hell was security doing? How did they even let him in? Jax's eyes were bloodshot. "My dad's dying. Please, I'm begging you. Get lost." I shot back without a hint of sympathy. "And how is that my problem?" "Are you still pissed that I took Isabella from you?" he demanded, clenching his fists. "It wasn't my fault. She wanted to be free. You can't blame me for that." He actually sounded like he believed he was the victim here. 2 minutes, I said calmly. "You don't leave now. I have no problem sending you back to prison." "Davis," he screamed at my retreating back. I kept walking, ignoring his pathetic, impotent rage. "It's not my fault you couldn't keep your woman. You're just a loser. Why are you taking it out on me now? All I did was hit you a little too hard, and I already paid for it. Why can't you just let go?" I glanced back at him, astonished by his audacity. He was a master at shifting blame. Then again, he and Isabella were two of a kind. Stupid, selfish, and cruel. "Security, there's an intruder on the property. I'm at the west gate. Get over here now." I hung up and looked at Jax. "You're a real idiot if you think I hate you because of Isabella," I said, giving him a look one might reserve for a particularly dumb animal. Then I turned my back on him. "You." His face contorted with rage, and he lunged at me like a wild animal. In a flash, a leg shot out from the side, kicking him squarely in the chest and sending him sprawling. A perfect shoe print was left on his shirt. "I've had my eye on you for a while," a voice said. It was Chloe. She took a deep breath and dusted off her hands with a flourish. Jax started to get back up. My heart pounded. I grabbed Chloe's hand, and we bolted towards the security booth. "Why are we running?" Chloe yelled, trying to keep up. I was dragging her so fast, she almost tripped. I didn't slow down. That son of a bitch has a knife. I glanced back and saw Jax chasing us, his face a mask of pure rage, a gleaming knife in his hand. Ah, he's going to kill us. Suddenly, I was being yanked forward by an incredible force. Chloe had somehow overtaken me and was now dragging me along, screaming her head off. In this life-or-death moment, I actually felt an insane urge to laugh. Just as we neared the gate, we heard a sickening crack from behind us. I turned to see a large figure pinning Jax to the ground. His arm was twisted behind his back at an unnatural angle. "Son of a bitch. I've been waiting years to do this. Finally got my hands on you." It was Mr. Carrington, grinning viciously. My own father was right behind him. "Are you two all right?" my dad asked. I shook my head. Chloe threw herself at my dad, hugging him tightly. "Mr. Hayes, he almost got me." I was so scared. Her father patted her on the head affectionately. It's okay now. We've got him." "He's still here," Bedford. Almost caught. The way she was running, Jax couldn't have caught her if he'd had a 5-second head start. And now she was playing the victim. Jax, pinned to the ground, was spewing a torrent of curses. Mr. Carrington, being ex-military, was still in great shape. One punch from him, and Jax went quiet. Jax went back to prison. This time, he got 4 years for assault with a deadly weapon. It turned out his father had died a while back, and he was trying to find Isabella to get money to pay off his gambling debts. That night, Isabella tried to see me. I ignored her calls, so she showed up outside my house. She just stood there, calling my name over and over through the iron bars of the gate. She apologized, confessed everything she'd done, and begged me not to hate her. I just called the police. She was disturbing the peace. As the police led her away, I told her that Chloe and I were getting married. Our families had arranged it that afternoon. I had no objections, and neither did Chloe. Isabella froze. The regret in her eyes exploded into pure agony, and tears streamed down her face. Chloe and I got married at the grandest resort in the state. The flowers and decorations alone cost a fortune, to say nothing of everything else. Everyone who was anyone in New York was there. Photos of the wedding were all over social media. 5 minutes before the ceremony started, I got a call from Isabella. "Can you wait for me?" she pleaded. "It's always been you. I've always loved you. If you got nothing better to do, I suggest you go see a therapist," I said, and hung up. My wedding to Chloe went off without a hitch. After that phone call, it was as if Isabella Carrington had vanished from the face of the earth. No one ever saw her again, not even her parents. Years later, Chloe and I had a daughter. We named her Lily. As for Isabella, a friend of a friend once mentioned seeing a homeless woman who looked a lot like her, living under an overpass in Chicago. But what does that have to do with me? I just want to take my wife and daughter on vacation.